Sounds good.
Okay, perfect. So good afternoon, everyone. We start with our second session today. So moving on to the next speaker for the day, it is truly an honor to welcome back yet another distinguished alumnus of AISSMS College of Hotel Management and Catering Technology, Mr. Sushant Rege. We are really delighted to have you with us today. Now, Mr. Rege brings with him an exceptional career spanning over 18 years across some of the world's most iconic luxury hospitality brands. He currently serves as the Director of Food and Beverage at the St. Regis Singapore Marriott International, where he leads operation for one of Singapore's most prestigious addresses. His global journey includes pivotal leadership roles such as Director of Beverage and Food at W Abu Dhabi, Yas Island, Assistant Director of Food and Beverage at the Singapore Marriott Tang Plaza, and key positions across Bangkok Marriott Marcus Queen's Park, JW Marriott Pune, and JW Marriott Mumbai Juhu. From overseeing award winning dining destinations and nightlife venues to spearheading pre opening teams and shaping beverage programs across Asia. His work consistently sets benchmark for excellence, innovation, and guest experience. Today, he joins us to share his experience on bar and beverage trends, craft culture, and compliance, a topic on which he holds deep knowledge and global insight. We warmly welcome you, sir, today. It is a privilege to have you back with us and an honor to host you today as an expert speaker for the ATAL Faculty Development Program. Thank you so much, sir. The screen is all yours. You may please begin.
Thank you, Tanushree. That was very, very kind of you to introduce me, and I'm very humbled to be a part of this. When the college reached out to me, I was more than happy to come on board and obviously share a little bit about insights on the beverage industry itself. If you allow me a second, I'm just going to quickly share my screen for the presentation. Just want to confirm everyone can see my screen.
Yes, it's visible.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Copy. So what I'm going to talk about is obviously bar and beverage trends. And this would also mean generally when we talk about trends, what that means is something that may have started in a small destination as small as, South America or Latin America that could spread across the world, or something that could have been initiated in a city as New York and then, obviously spreads around the world. So why I say that is because trends are not something that come about overnight, but can span anywhere up to 5 years, which is still considered a trend. So what that means is something that I present today would be something that is either ongoing or we see a trend that has started over the last couple of years and we see that it would boom. It's either already moved booming or would boom over the next couple of years. Yeah. So the way I'm going to run this presentation is sorry, table of contents. So we're going to cover topics which include building award-winning bars. So that's basically if you are an entrepreneur, what does it take for you to build a bar that is award-winning? Market beverage trends, the trick of the trade, really what trends in mixology include, and then the drinking culture and trends in drinking. So, building award-winning bars, what is the winning formula for an award-winning bar? And the few topics that I would cover in this is the design, a balanced beverage menu, immersive cocktail program, quality of OS&E, music, menu design and style, food menu and bar snacks, uniform, and ice. So these are the key factors that overall, if you were to be able to get all of these right, would help a bar to be successful, right? And a lot of these sometimes seem very basic, but generally end up being overlooked because everyone tends to really focus on how good your cocktails are or how good is your wine list, not really paying attention to every detail as part of the experience of the bar. And eventually winning awards or having a successful bar purely purely depends on how do you make your customers or guests feel. And it is every touch point from the time they actually look at your booking window or online platform to your social media to the time they enter your bar to the time they leave is an overall experience that would rate you as a great, exceptional quality bar. It's not just the cocktail program. It's not just the great bartender that you have behind the bar who's making great drinks. It's a combination of everything from start to end. So the first one is design. And why is this important is it needs to be relevant to the concept. Well, what that means is when you're starting a bar or when you're initiating the concept of a bar, the design plays an important role because if you want to have a great cocktail bar, but it is designed to be a wine bar or is designed to be a whiskey bar, obviously that impacts the impression of what a guest sees when they enter. So which means that when you are at the designing phase of your establishment, it's important to make sure that you have all of these in line, which is the designer, the concept, and realistically what you want, how do you want this to bring this concept to life. The quality of the furniture also is extremely important, and what that means is, is the height of the tables correct? Is the lighting correct? Is the chairs comfortable enough for the guest experience, right? So it's very important, and that meaning in sync with the concept of the bar itself. Flow of operations. Sometimes we don't spend enough time designing the back of house because obviously rents in different part of the world. If you are renting a space to open a bar, rents can get quite expensive, which means that we don't think about what is the heart of house, what kind of ice machines do we have, is the space enough for us to be able to operate the bar right? And if you can't, that would mean that the bar would eventually not end up being successful. So it's important to have the whole design layout, just planning ahead in terms of how would that flow of operations work for the bar when this is brought to life. And it's important to be zonal and intimate, which means that, people in today's world love their privacy. They like intimate spaces. So it's very important to make sure that intimacy and zoning of the space is part of the design while developing the initial concept of the bar. Next is immersive cocktail program. So obviously it's important to have a good cocktail, a strong cocktail program as part of the bar experience. So which means that it needs to be experiential, right? And people pay for experiences in today's world. It's not about going to a bar, paying for a drink and just getting it served to you in front of you, but it's all about what is this experience like. It's about storytelling. It's very, very important as part of what you put on your menu or what is the way it is served, in terms of what kind of tray, the service experience. It all needs to tell a story because today's world, people are looking for storytelling. It needs to be concept driven, obviously, which means that you're either a rum bar, a whiskey bar, a cocktail bar, a wine bar. You need to stay true to your concept, and hence the cocktail program needs to sort of bring that to life. It needs to be sensory. And when I say sensory, it means that it's not just the taste of the drink, but it's also the whole experience from, what is the smell in terms of smoke, or the garnish itself needs to tell a story when you bring the glass next to your nose. And sensory means also what do you see, what do you taste, and what do you smell, right? So that's the overall experience. There are certain cocktail bars that are actually pushing the limits, which means that when they serve certain cocktails, they also have a very small way of creating certain subtle tones of music, like whether it's birds chirping or a particular style of music that comes to you on the table. So there's obviously the music that plays in the bar, but when they serve this particular signature cocktail of theirs, they kind of bring a little bit of music onto the table when this cocktail is being served, and that sort of captures the complete sensory experience just besides taste, sight, and the nose. And obviously, it needs to be photogenic and Instagrammable. Today people eat more with their phones or drink more with their phones rather than with their mouth, which means that they always take pictures of everything that is being served to them, and hence it needs to be photogenic or Instagrammable. Quality OSNE. So OSNE, obviously in a bar, a lot of times when we say a good bar needs to have good OSNE, the first thing that comes to your mind is only the cocktail glasses, right? While that's very important, you need to make sure that it's not just the cocktails, but it's also the wine, your whiskey, your tall glasses, which is your highball, but also what kind of glassware are you serving your non-alcoholic drinks in? What kind of glassware are you serving your water in? And that defines realistically what quality bar you are at. So, if you're not paying attention to what kind of serviceware you're using for your water or your mocktails, and I'm just going to use the word mocktails till we reach a little bit further in the presentation, because I have a whole presentation on mocktails and what that means to guests in today's world. Yeah. So obviously presentation of mocktails, the glassware that is served in, what kind of garnish sticks are we using? Metal, or if you are a beach bar, then obviously you can use bamboo, but is it sustainable? Cutlery, plateware, napkins, very, very important in a high quality bar, because sometimes people always think about glasses is it, and that's all that the experience encapsulates. But it's not just that, right? It's all everything that a guest can touch or use to eat or experience is very, very important from an experience perspective. Music. So another sensory thing is music, and that plays a very important role to the whole experience or the journey of the guest in the bar. The music needs to be true to concept, and true to concept means if you are in mind you want to open a jazz bar, then you need to stick to the concept of jazz. If you are opening a nightclub, so obviously upbeat music. If you're opening a lounge, it needs to be loungy. If you're opening a beach bar in a resort, obviously the style of music needs to really bring that experience to life. It doesn't make sense having a beach bar but playing jazz music, because obviously the experience is contradicting each other. So extremely important that you have the right style of music, and all this needs to be defined right at the time of when you are looking at opening a bar or bringing the concept to life. Also setting the tone and creating a vibe, important to ensure that the vibe in the bar is right, which means that you need to read your audience. You can't have extreme high upbeat music at 5 in the evening if your bar opens at 5, because obviously people are not yet at that energy level that they would be, when the bar starts moving into 9, 10, 11, 12, or past midnight. So it needs to obviously have a kind of tone to it, which is progressive, and it's important to make sure that you define that, whether it's through live music in the form of a DJ or a band or whatever that is. Menu design and style. Another thing that is extremely important to look at is the way your menus are designed for the bar. It needs to be relevant to concept, which means that you can't have a bamboo style menu in a fine dine or a cocktail bar, and you can't have an extreme leather fine dine menu that you're using in a beach bar or in a pool bar. So it's important to ensure that you understand the direction that the bar needs to be, and the menu style and design, the feel of the menu plays an important role in that. So menus in today's world are getting very creative. People are not generally sticking to the very traditional style of menus. It is very experiential again. So the story of the bar needs to be brought to life through the menu experience, because that sort of is the second touch point after guests are seated on the table, is what kind of experience or the journey of the menu before they can actually have someone take the order. And also playing around with textures and colors, which in general would stick to the same interiors or design element of the bar. Food menu and bar snacks. Again, very, very important and key, relevant to concept, which means that you need to make sure that the food speaks to the beverage concept, and the beverage sort of highlights what the bar menu or what the chefs want to bring to life through the bar menu. It should be small and bite size. I would stay away from using anything that is curry or something that would require too much detail of sharing or cutting, because obviously table heights in bars are normally lower, and it gets quite uncomfortable to eat. So normally menus for a good cocktail bar menu would be small bites, very easy to eat, and very, very clean. Different types of variations of cooking method, and not typically everything is fried. The one thing that guests obviously are not a fan of is you go to a bar and you find everything on the menu is fried. fried wings, fried calamari, and there's no healthy options. And in today's world, we see a lot of guests looking for healthy options, even though they're going to a bar, they are looking at healthy options. Quality ingredients. So your food menu should speak again in terms of the quality that you offer should be in sync with the drinks program. You can serve great quality martinis, but if you're not using good quality, high product food ingredients in the bar and you're just serving chips, it makes no sense, right? So that also defines what kind of bar you're running or wish to run. The bar snacks, this would mean anything like olives, nuts, or chips that you would offer to guests for free. Again, people in today's world are looking at what you are serving in your bars, and you can't just get away with serving peanuts or something that doesn't have a story. And there's nothing wrong in serving peanuts in a bar, right? I've seen very high quality bars around the world that serve peanuts, but they're not just peanuts. There's a story to it, which means that, for example, if you go to anywhere in Southeast Asia, the flavors like somtam, tom yum, these kind of flavors are brought to life by having these peanuts tossed in that kind of sauce, and it tells a story of the region or place that you're in. If you go to the Middle East, a local kind of herb or a local kind of spice is mixed with peanuts or cashew nuts to bring the story to life. And what that does is, when people travel around the world, the one thing that they like to see is how does local culture or flavor come to life in the spaces that they are at. And that's not limited to just a restaurant, but also the bar in the form of the free bar gratis is where the storytelling comes to life. Uniforms, again, something a lot of times people in bars or when they're opening bars, they overlook or they think a bit too much about. And what that means is the uniforms need to be concept driven. You shouldn't look at having someone in a white coat like the lady I have on the photograph, a lady in white with a tie working in a beach bar. And similarly, you shouldn't have someone in shorts and t-shirt, which would typically work in a beach bar designed as a uniform for a cocktail bar, which is in a high in a country like Bangkok or New York. Obviously, the expectation would be the bartender is well dressed. And again, another thing that a lot of people do is, instead of thinking about what kind of concept my bar is, they have very generic uniforms, which is typically a white shirt, black trousers, and either an apron or a bow tie. But there's no storytelling in that. The uniform is another way to bring the concept of the bar to life. And if you have any kind of design element that is either local, that is part of the design of the interiors of the bar, it's advisable to bring that to life in the form of the uniform as well, because again, it's a great opportunity for storytelling. It needs to be comfortable, that goes without saying, and it needs to showcase character. It needs to bring the bar to life. Ice, as simple as it sounds, ice is nothing but frozen water. It is one of the most key ingredients that can make or break a cocktail bar. And the reason I say that is, if you don't use the right quality ice, you can have the best cocktail program in the world, but obviously that will not translate into your drinks. So very, very important. And there's a lot of awareness globally in using a proper ice for drinks around the world. High quality ice, large size. Obviously, large size is very, very important because it helps to reduce the dilution or the speed of dilution in drinks, which obviously means that you start watering down your drinks, which we don't want to have in our bars. It needs to be clear, and the easiest way to get clear ice is obviously using hot water and freezing it immediately, which gives you clear ice versus using room temperature water. So a lot of times around the world, people in bars are now making their own ice versus using ice machines. So for high quality drinks, they are making ice from scratch versus using ready-made ice from ice machines. The experience of the ice as well. Sometimes if you see the photograph that I put over here, people are using ice to, for setting ice with gold, with herbs, with flowers. And the reason they do that is the way certain drinks are made is the flavor that is incorporated into the ice would then change the experience of the drink from the first sip to the last sip as the ingredients in the ice start melting and the flavors start coming out into the drink itself. So people are making cocktail menus with obviously, I wouldn't say necessarily flavored ices, but obviously concentrated items like herbs or even gold to add appearance to the finished product. Also, hand carving ice. So a lot of times in good quality bars, bartenders produce or buy big slabs of ice and then they carve them live in front of the guest and that behind the bar, but in front of the guest, which is part of the whole experience. So shaving the ice or carving the ice is one of the trends that bartenders are doing globally as well. Okay, so one of the biggest bar awards around the world currently is 50 Best. So 50 Best is an institution that globally acknowledges the 50 best bars by region as well as around the world. So there are two different, there are actually a couple of them. What I have highlighted on this particular slide is Asia's 50 best, and then there's the world's 50 best. And this has been around for over 10 years now. And this, if you were to get onto this list as a bar, it obviously means that you're a top quality bar. You can't buy your way onto this list. It is very similar to a Michelin guide, where the people who vote for this list is a mix of industry experts, auditors, and guests. It's a 33% mix of each of these, which votes you onto the list. And if you're featured on this, obviously, there's an award ceremony once a year, and you get featured as on the 50 best. Another reason why I actually put up this list for you all to see which takes me to my next slide. So 50 best Asia 10 years ago were prominently ruled by the big countries. So you'd have Hong Kong, Singapore, Tokyo, Seoul, um, Shanghai, and these were pretty much 5 to 6 cities that were on 50 best. So you would have at least 6 to 7 bars of each of these cities, and that's what the 50 best bars were. I'm talking about anywhere between 2012 to 2016, 17, right? And then there was a little bit of a shift in that, and we saw emerging talents that started coming out of India, Nepal, regional China, Taiwan, and Indonesia. So if you look going back to my previous slide, the list from 50 best bars, Asia's 50 best bars 2025, the number of bars, it's still the number one bar in Asia and number one bar in the world is Bar Leon, which is from Hong Kong. But if you go through the list in detail, and I've just sort of summarized it on my next slide, there are much more bars that are featured from India, Nepal, regional China, Taiwan, and Indonesia. On the 50 best, world's 50 best, you do have a couple from India, but you have Latin America, Middle East, regional China, and Eastern Europe, which didn't exist on the list in the past. So most of the 50 best bars were typically for global were London, New York, Mexico City, Singapore, Hong Kong, Shanghai, Taiwan, right? And that's changed quite a bit where regional countries and even the Middle East, which 10 years ago there was a taboo on drinking, is now making 50 best bars. So, there is a big shift in trends coming out of these more regional countries or cities and regions that are now, doing great quality bars and drinks. I also highlighted a couple of Indian bartenders that are doing a great job on a global platform. So obviously, Young Duplama is a legendary guy from India who's been leading this for the last 15 years now. But a few others who have actually really been acknowledged on a global platform. So there's Varun Sudhakar, there's Santosh Kreti, there's Shantanu Chanda, and Shantanu actually used to be a bartender of mine many years ago at Miami, the nightclub in JW Marriott Pune, and then he moved overseas. He moved to Dubai, and he won quite a few competitions, and is actually a very well-known bartender around the world now. I think he runs his own bar in Bangalore or Goa now, but great guy and is well recognized around the world. Hemant Pathak is currently, I think, the bar manager at Junoon in New York. He was world class winner 2011, and obviously he's doing great work setting his name in New York and doing very well for himself. Devendra Sehgal, also great, well-known name in the industry. Worked, I think, in Taj Delhi, and then after that moved to Hong Kong, got a couple of bars on his name, which were in the 50 best, and has really done very well for himself on a global platform. And the latest one that everyone's talking about is Apurva Kohli. So she is again coming out of India and she won the Blend Scholarship by 50 Best, World's 50 Best in 2023. So the World's 50 Best bars, the ceremony was held in Singapore, and every year it's in a different country or in a different city. And in 2023, it was held in Singapore, and I had the privilege of attending the ceremony and saw them announcing her live. And where I'm trying to come from is there are a lot of Indian talent that is currently, over the last 10 years, really making a name for themselves on a global platform. So globally, a lot of people are looking at what is coming out of India in the form of talent, but also what kind of bars are emerging in the Indian landscape. Asia's 50 Best, just to name a few bars to summarize the names from 2025. So you have Lair from New Delhi, Soka from Bangalore, Boilermaker from Goa, ZLB 23 is, I think, second time in a row they're on the list. That's at the Leela Palace in Bangalore. And then Bar Spirit Forward from Bangalore as well at number 37. So 5 bars on 50 Best Asia this year. Moving on to the next segment, which is market trends. So here, what I'm going to talk about is guest shifts, regional and craft, on tap, concept bars, caravan, sustainability, and tea and coffee experiences. And I've thrown tea and coffee experiences into this segment of mine purely because a lot of times we think about tea and coffee as just a non-alcoholic beverage, but globally this trend is changing and emerging quite fast. And I think, honestly, I believe this started off as a very tiny thing out of the Middle East, but now globally has caught up with speed, where the whole experience of tea and coffee is no more just, a cappuccino or a tea with milk, but it's a lot more. So guest shifts, and what that is basically bar takeovers and guest shifts in collaboration with other concept bars. One of the biggest trends that you see currently all over the world in cocktail bars are guest shifts. So it's either a 4 hands or 6 hands, where for one night or 2 nights only, you'd have one of the bars from 50 Best that would go and do a pop-up guest shift in another city or another country in normally the most prominent bars of that particular city. It drives reputation for both, and also helps with guest experience. So what this really is back in the day we would only hear about chefs collaborations, chefs 4 hands, 6 hands, or Michelin star chefs coming and doing special menus in good quality restaurants around the world, and that's changed quite a bit. While that still is a trend, I think it's become a lot more trendy to do it in bars. And the whole experience with this is, if I am because I'm calling in from Singapore. So if I'm in Singapore right now, and we've got a great bar in Singapore, but I have never traveled to Mexico City, but one of the top bars from Mexico come and do a guest shift in a bar in Singapore, me as a customer would go and attend that purely because I want to see really what is the hype about this bar in Mexico, and what is their cocktail program, what are the drinks that they're offering. So they would fly in their head bartender from Mexico into Singapore, and they would do a collaboration with the local head bartender of this particular bar in Singapore to have a curated menu, and it's a 1 night or 2 night only, where the whole experience of the two cultures or the two bars are brought to life. So obviously a massive trend around the world, and this normally there are a lot of these guest that happen during the 50 Best award ceremony, wherever it happens, in whichever part of the world. Regional and craft. So there are 2 things to this, a little bit about sustainability, but regional and craft spirits, wine, beer, and ingredients are becoming a trend. And gone are the days where I would import a type of orange or a type of spirit purely because it's quality. I think there are a lot of budding, much more aggressive, younger, experimental entrepreneurs who are creating great quality craft and regional product all over the world, right? So the trend is to use the regional product versus using something that is produced halfway around the world and then importing it into the country, which includes taxes, shipping, and the carbon footprint. New wine producing countries are emerging. So obviously India, China, Argentina, Chile, South Africa, Thailand are emerging countries in the wine market. And obviously a lot of people around the world are adapting to these kind of or adapting these products on their wine lists because regional wine lists are becoming a big trend as well. Local flavors inspired and production style. So obviously, when people are producing gin in India, they're using a lot of local Indian spices and herbs, and people want to understand what that tastes like, and hence it's becoming a great trend. People in Thailand, if they produce their gin, or in Australia, like the Four Pillars gin, they're using local product to obviously tell a story of the country that the product comes from. So obviously, this is becoming a trend where people are not realistically just having no more gin, just a Bombay Sapphire or a Hendrix, but it's a lot more regional. And there's a lot of culture and storytelling as well. A great example is Stranger and Sons gin. So obviously, Stranger and Sons gin comes out of India, but the way this gin was marketed, it has become a global phenomenon. It's a great gin not to just have it by itself, but also great for mixing. They hired the best brand ambassadors around the world to take the outreach into the international market. And in all honesty, Stranger and Sons is now one of the most preferred gins in the bartender industry, where most bartenders are using Stranger and Sons as a gin for their cocktails on cocktail menus. So again, this ties it back up to guest shifts, where Stranger and Sons sponsored a lot of guest shifts by a lot of bartenders around the world, making sure that they use their product. And that was a great marketing tool to take India to the world from a gin market perspective. On tap, when we talk about on tap, the only thing that normally comes to our mind is beer or draft beer, but there's a lot more than just that, right? So a lot of craft beers which are regionally produced also are on tap. Pre-batched cocktails. So we also do cocktails on tap, and I had the opportunity to actually personally work with the system of cocktails on tap in my previous hotel, where we would do pre-batched cocktails, and we had a line of 10 different taps where all of the cocktails were pre-batched, great quality, and could be used for at least up to 2 weeks because of the nitrogen system where the cocktails are preserved. And instead of using lime juice, we use citric acid, but cocktails can be pre-batched, kept, and nothing happens to them. You make a batch of 20 liters, and then they can be batched out by tap whenever required. Wine as well. So a lot of people are moving to wine on tap, and what that allows for is to have a greater selection of wines by the glass, rather than having 5 white, 5 red, 1 rosé, 1 champagne, which is just a very safe bet. A lot of bars are using wine on tap, where you can have at least 10 red, 10 white by the glass, and obviously the experience of guest is they have more variety to try from. And concept bars. So moving into concept bars here, obviously no more is it okay to just have a bar, which means nothing, or a place to just drink, but it's very important to have a strong concept to back it. And general concepts that exist around the world are obviously you're a wine bar, you are a brewery in yourself, which means that you brew your own beer. You have gin bars where you have an extensive list of gins. So we have Atlas Bar in Singapore, which is a cocktail bar, but they have close to 3,000 gins available in the space. So obviously 3,000 is a massive list, but it obviously gives a reason for guests to go back, because if they would, the opportunity to try gins from all over the world is endless, and hence, a gin bar. Tiki bars, which is obviously very tiki driven style cocktails. agave spirit bars, and agave is now a growing trend. So gin was a trend. I want to say it started off 15 years ago, and it lasted for 10 years, and now slowly the agave spirit is now growing as the preferred choice of drink. So not necessarily just tequila, but any kind of agave spirit is moving up as a trend, and people are making agave spirit concept bars where you can have a massive list of agave spirit producers from all over the world, not just Mexico. And this is obviously an experience. And then whiskey bars, where obviously you have a long list of whiskeys, can be paired with cigars, and the experiences are endless. Corovan, again, this is a system that helps to preserve wine. And what that does is it gives the opportunity for us as uh, us as an operator to have more than just the affordable cheap wines available to guests on the menu, right? Because obviously from a beverage cost perspective, it's important to make sure that the cost of the wine that we serve by the glass is not too high, because obviously we know with spoilage that eats into our profit margins. Now, with the Corovan system, what that does is it helps to preserve the wine. It is a needle that is poked into the cork of the wine, and obviously the wine then gets poured out with pressure, but it helps preserve the wine long term through the nitrogen that is pumped in, so that the wine doesn't get oxidized. So this gives the opportunity to then have a lot of champagnes by the glass, or even premier cru wines by the glass, where guests may not necessarily want to open a full bottle of a Premier Cru wine, but want to experience it in the form of a glass. And that's what Corovan is doing right now globally, is all top restaurants and bars around the world are using the system to give guests the experience of high-end wines available by the glass. Sustainability. And there are two slides that I have on sustainability. There's another one a little bit at the bottom. So here my slide talks about sustainability being a trend. And that's not a drinking trend. It's a little bit more a market trend, where bars are using more regionally sourced product purely to reduce the carbon footprint, right? So it's not just your spirits, but it's also regional wine lists. It's also water. A lot of bars are moving away from using Evian, Acopana, Perrier, which is, produced in Europe and flown halfway across the world, versus installing systems where you can have still and sparkling water available from your local filtration, and it comes out in the form of still or sparkling, or using more regional products with this, which is within Asia, within the Middle East, from countries that are producing this same quality, just not the same brand name as an Evian or an Acopana. Eco spirits. So obviously, instead of using a 750 ml glass bottle, now suppliers are making 3-liter, 5-liter, 10-liter bottles. And what that does is, me as a cocktail bar, just using Absolute as an example. So Absolute vodka, if I know that it's used as one of my pouring spirits in a particular cocktail, using a 750 ml bottle in a high volume bar, I would need at least 10 bottles in a night, right? But the glass bottles, as much as they can be recycled, it still costs energy to take the empty bottles back to the recycling system. And that still adds on to the carbon footprint. So what suppliers are now doing and working with bars and bartenders is introducing eco spirits, which means that these come in larger formats of 10 liters, which can then be refilled into smaller bottles at source. So in my bar, I'll buy a 10-liter, and then I would refill this into my smaller bottles, rather than having, 3 cases of the same requirement in the form of 750 ml bottles. Sustainably grown and processed. Obviously, what kind of sustainable programs suppliers are using for either growing grapes or producing the wine or producing the malt is extremely important. And this is obviously a trend. And this is also not just a trend, but it's also controlled by the government globally. So it's obviously very, very important that every supplier is following this. Zero waste. So obviously most bars are opting into zero waste. So it's not just about using paper straws, but it's also about how can we make full use of your orange as an example. When you're making a cocktail which is with orange juice, what are you doing with the skin? And a lot of cocktail bartenders are saying zero waste cocktails, which means that if I'm making a cocktail with grapefruit or orange, not do I only use the citrus juice and throw the skin away, but what am I doing with that skin? Can it be dehydrated and used as a garnish? Can it be dehydrated, powdered down into a powder, mixed with salt and used as garnish on the rim of a cocktail of a margarita? So people are getting very, very creative with zero waste cocktails all over the world because we obviously understand as a business how do we impact the environment. And local ingredients, again, like I said, it helps reduce the carbon footprint. Most menus around the world are now looking at local or regional ingredients to highlight what is the offering in the bar versus using only international product. Tea and coffee experience. Like I said, the coffee and tea experience plays a pivotal role in restaurants and bars. And a good example of this is we are seeing an increase in sparkling tea producers. And I've just used one photo example of this particular brand called Copenhagen Tea, produced in Denmark. And I personally use them in my current hotel as well, with our afternoon tea experience. But sparkling teas are becoming a great alternative to sparkling wine or champagne, and are being used more and more in Michelin restaurants. So when you go to a two-star or three-star Michelin restaurant, you obviously would get a pairing menu, curated chef's omakase menu, which is paired with either wine or champagne. And normally, a lot of these restaurants are now starting to use sparkling tea as an alternative to the champagne instead of only wine or alcohol. Cold brew, again, a great experience for people who are non-alcoholic. It's not about just having hot brew coffees, but also cold brew is one of a growing trend. What happens with cold brew is there is less extraction of tannin, and this obviously has a much more softer and rounded mouthfeel versus brewing a hot coffee and pouring it over ice. So there's a big difference in the palate of a hot brew. So the best example that I can give with this is if you were to get an espresso, pour it over ice as an iced Americano, and have that versus a cold brew coffee, which is dripped with ice, the tannins and the bitterness in the coffee itself is very, very different. And then you also have other trends like pour over coffee, AeroPress, V60. These kind of coffee experiences are growing onto most menus of bars around the world. Tricks of the trade and trends in mixology. So we just finished covering the general market trends. Now what I'm going to talk about is what are the trends in mixology and what do the bartender themselves do as trends to support or build trends in the industry. And the first one is the bartender. What is the bartender? Styles of cocktails, uncommon, serviceware, and bar labs. So the bartender itself is no more just a person who stands behind the bar and makes drinks. He's a mixologist. He or she is a mixologist. It's a liquid chef. It's a curator of experiences and is theatrical. Has to be theatrical. It's like you're on stage. It's no more just standing behind the bar with a barrier between yourself and the guest. A lot of bartenders now prefer coming out across the bar in the form of trolleys and doing trolley service table side rather than having to make drinks behind the bar because they build that emotional connect with the guest rather than having the barrier between them. Styles of cocktails. So obviously this is where bartenders are creative. No more is shaken or stirred the only method of cocktail making being used. A lot of bartenders are now preferring throwing, and that's what you would see as the bartender doing on my slide in the center is he's throwing a cocktail from one shaker to the other. And this method is used for certain cocktails like Bloody Marys, martinis. I mean, in our mind, we'd always think martinis are stirred, but people are pushing their boundaries with now throwing drinks rather than shaken or stirred. It also has a lot to do with the experience visually, because just watching a bartender stir a drink is quite boring. Fat washed. So another trend that bartenders are doing to push the limits of mixology is fat washing cocktails. So what is fat washed? Fat washed is basically taking a product that has fat in it. So it could be bacon, non-vegetarian, it could be bacon, it could be chicken, it could be oil, so like olive oil, it could be butter, and they would soak that in the spirit itself. The spirit would then, so the vodka, just to use an example, they would soak this particular ingredient in the vodka. They would let the vodka absorb the flavor of the fat, and once that is done, they would then cool it down. What happens with that is the fat coagulates, right? And so the fat starts coagulating. They would then take the fat out of the spirit by straining. But what is left is a very flavorful spirit that has the flavors of these uncommon ingredients that you cannot get by in the form of a syrup or by just soaking. So that's fat wash. Now that's becoming a trend on most cocktail lists around the world. Clarified milk punches. And that's another one that you'd see in most top cocktail bars are clarified milk punch cocktails. And what that is basically taking milk and curdling it with the spirit, which obviously means that there is a separation of the fat and the whey, and then it is strained out, which means that the whey of the milk comes out with the spirit, adding flavor to it, and it's a clarified drink. So clarified milk punches or clarified drinks in general are becoming a trend where we're tending to see a lot of clear Bloody Marys, which are no more red, but transparent Bloody Marys. Taste exactly like a Bloody Mary, but it's transparent and not thick and red like tomato juice. And culinary ingredients. So obviously bartenders are using a lot more culinary ingredients like citric acid, vinegar, sea salts, saline water, olive oil. It's no more just lemon juice. So citric acid is replacing lemon juice. Vinegar, balsamic vinegar, apple cider vinegar is obviously much more flavorful than just lemon juice. Flavored salts, saline water, using saline water to balance the texture of the drink and the flavor, and then also olive oil as for certain flavor enhancements. Uncommon serviceware, again, fancy glassware, teacups, and a lot more. So it's no more just getting a drink in a glass. It's about how does the serviceware tell a story about either your bar or your cocktail program. It's not about just a straightforward glass. Bar labs. So no more bartenders referring to their back of house as back of house. They're referring, or a pantry, they're referring to it as a bar lab. And most bars around the world are now looking at working with rotary evaporators. And you see the one in the center of the presentation. So that's an actual bar that has a rotary evaporator in the bar that the guests can see, but that literally helps to change the consistency, texture of the ingredients in the drink itself. So a lot of bartenders are experimenting with laboratory apparatus to push boundaries of the textures and flavors of beverage before it's served to guests. Also, homemade shrubs, bitters, spirits, and tonics, everything homemade rather than buying it off the shelf. But also it means that it adds more value to the bar. When you go to a bar and you see that something is homemade rather than a Monin syrup or something that's available in a supermarket, it starts to feel much more premium. But also this gives the opportunity for bartenders to use a lot more local products than something that is just very basic. So I'm going to now move on to the next segment, which is drinking culture and trends. And I think this is where we're looking at the culture in the industry from the lens of a customer or a guest, right? So we obviously spoken about the general market trends. We spoke about bartender trends and what bartenders are trying to do or be trendy. And now we're going to look at what customers want or what customers are drinking or expecting in today's world, right? So looking at the current generation of customers, we're obviously looking at low ABV or no ABV, storytelling, sustainable, vegan, and vintage, right? So the very first one being low ABV. So millennials and Gen Z are looking at lower ABV and lower ABV beverage options. So they don't want very strong drinks. They don't want something that will get you drunk, or they don't want something that will get you drunk at all. And what you see on the left is a picture of a non-alcoholic spirit. So the trend is manufacturers are making something that tastes like gin or tequila or whiskey or rum or a liqueur, but has zero alcohol in it, right? And you'd start seeing now in the market the availability of zero ABV beer. So Heineken is making a zero alcohol beer, or many other suppliers as well, producers as well. Zero alcohol wines, and then the bartenders are making zero alcohol cocktails. And that's where I said no more are drinks on the menu called mocktails, but they're starting to be called zero ABV cocktails. And why is that? Is because back in the day, as bars evolved, it was normally just a section of 3 drinks on the menu where people would call it mocktails. 1 out of 10 in a group would want something that's non-alcoholic. The bartender would mix 3 different types of juices, put an orange as the garnish, give you a straw, fill it with ice, and that's your mocktail, right? It was a fruit punch. That's not the case anymore. What it is really giving a customer an experience of a full-fledged mixed beverage with the flavor of the gin, the taste of the gin or the taste of the whiskey in the cocktail, but has zero alcohol in it. And that's what customers or current millennials and Gen Z are looking for. They're looking for the same experience. They're looking for the same smoked cocktail, but with zero alcohol, and they're ready to pay for it, right? So that's becoming a growing trend. Spritz, obviously lower alcoholic content, which means that anything that has a base spirit, but then it's topped up with a homemade soda, or is it topped up with some kind of sparkling bubbly, which helps to reduce the alcohol content in each drink that they consume. So I think back in the day, it was a trend to get drunk with the cheapest alcohol off the shelf, or having one Long Island iced tea, which is a mix of 5 different spirits. You have one drink, you get drunk, and people are happy. Now that trend is changing. Millennials and Gen Zs are not really looking for that globally. They're looking for the experience. They're okay to pay for a second drink, but as long as it gives you the experience of drinking, but not getting them drunk. Storytelling, people are getting more curious, and gone are the days where knowledge and information was only found in books. With the power of AI, with the power of Google, people are already aware, and much more aware than we think about general awareness, right? So they are curious. They want to know every single thing about the drink that you give them, whether it's a wine, whether it's a cocktail, whether it's a spirit, or whether it's a beer. They are looking for what is the story, the art of how, why, and what. Very, very important. And that we see a lot more of the how, why, what coming onto the labels of wines, coming onto the menus of cocktail bars, coming onto the menus of breweries, where people start questioning. And obviously, it's already there in a written format about how is it made, why is it made in a particular way, and what is it really? A lot with question to sustainability as well. But in general, people love storytelling, and that's a part of the experience. Sustainable. So again, moving back to the part where the earlier part was more on a market trend where governments are pushing for sustainability to save the world. But here it's more about the general awareness where people themselves as consumers are looking at sustainable options in everything that they eat and drink. So they're looking at sustainably sourced products, looking at wine labels. They're looking for somewhere an indication that says sustainably sourced wine, organically produced wines. They are looking at cocktail menus which have zero waste cocktails. Statistics shows that in bars that have zero waste or sustainably sourced or organic wines on the menu, consumers are willing to pay a bit more for that than for the general products that have no story. And also they're quite aware of how does purchasing a particular product affect the carbon footprint, which means that a lot of people in today's world are conscious about how do they contribute by buying a particular product towards the carbon footprint. Vegan, who would have thought making sour cocktails like a whiskey sour could ever be served to a person who is vegan or vegetarian, because the key ingredient to create the foam in a sour style cocktail, be it a gin sour, whiskey sour, the foam that comes on the top is purely because of egg white. And in today's world, we know with dietary restrictions and with general awareness, a lot of people around the world are moving towards vegan or vegetarian. It's not just India, it's all over the world. And with that, producers are also becoming conscious, and so are bartenders and beverage professionals. So we're getting a large option of vegan wines and cocktails. And this product called Air, and this is one of many products that are available in the market, where you drop a few drops of this into your cocktail while making it, and it's the ideal option to remove the egg white out of your cocktail, which makes the cocktail vegan or vegetarian with exactly the same consistency. Vintage. So one of the other trends that consumers look at is the classics are cool and they never will go out of fashion. So obviously we know that classic cocktails are here to stay. These were cocktails that were produced many years ago or even centuries ago, and have stood the test of time and will continue to stand the test of time. A lot of places you can have the coolest of cocktail bars with whatever cocktail program you want. There are still guests who will go to the cocktail bar and ask for the general vintage classic cocktails, which is a Negroni, old fashioned, martini, Manhattan, sidecar. These are just some examples. But what that means is the classics will never get forgotten. They can be tweaked just to sort of enhance the flavor of the presentation, but a lot of consumers are still looking at the very classic cocktails to try in good quality bars. And that is it.
Thank you so much.
Fantastic presentation. Great session, Sushant.
I'm sorry if I ran a little bit under time. I was quite fast. Just wanted to make sure everyone was engaged. I'm happy to start taking any questions or open for any kind of discussion or thoughts that anyone would like to have.
Participants are requested. Yes, please, Mr. Joseph, please ask your question.
Hi, good evening, Sushant. Sushant, one thing which, having worked in the bar, I faced and so was the responsible service of alcohol, that part,
Yes,
and the challenges we face, when, especially when you look at the Indian market and
sure.
you realize how difficult it is. So how is it there, working in a country like Singapore when you compare it with our country? And what
Well,
can we do to get that change here?
Great question. And the one thing that we do as part of the company, and I've been with Marriott for 18 years now, the one thing that we do with anyone who joins the company is to go through an alcohol awareness training or alcohol service awareness training. And what that means is every new joinee who works in any kind of alcohol service area goes through this training, which will emphasize on when can you say no? And if you can't say no directly, obviously inform your manager to say no. And this goes back to ethics as well. And why I say that is a lot of times people tend to get greedy and they don't really care about the customer, which means that if the customer's drinking, the customer's drunk and is asking for more, they sort of think that I'll just make some more money out of it. I don't really care whether the customer goes home safe or not. But I think there's a lot of awareness about making sure that there's safety. There are a lot of bars around the world where they don't or they don't encourage you to drive after you visited a bar. And there's awareness everywhere in the bars itself, advising guests if you're drinking, don't drive, and what is the limit. So there is a lot of empowerment with stopping service for people who, when you judge that they are sort of gone overboard with their drinks.
Good. All right, thank you.
One request, Sushant, could you please switch off your share screen button?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Stop sharing it. Right.
Yes, perfect. Any other questions, participants? Please unmute yourself.
Yeah, I do have one.
Sure.
Yeah, hi Sushant.
Hi.
Yeah, so I have a question with regards to students, right?
Sure.
Uh, since there is so much happening in the industry, especially where you beverage, a lot of mixology and a lot of variations that are happening. So how do you see that the potential for having this updated things coming for students? Like, can it be having, can you have a virtual mixology training or some kind of simulation models that can happen, which will enable the students to be at par with what is happening in the industry?
Yeah, I mean, great question, and I think I'm a little outdated with what current syllabuses would potentially could be like in the colleges or universities, and hence it's not fair for me to comment on that. But what I think would be a great opportunity is sessions like I may have done right now, is having industry experts constantly speak about their experiences and trends. And why I say that is there needs to be curiosity for the student itself, right? And now with the power of AI and the internet, uh, it's endless, going onto the internet and finding any kind of thing. But it would be nice if you could have key people from key cocktail bars or wine bars from the industry in India. And the reason I say to start off with India is because I think currently Indian bars are doing a phenomenal job on a global platform, right? And I think even if you were to start from there, you pick up 10 bars and somehow try and have someone speak about this. What are their bars doing differently? And how do they set themselves up for success? I think that would really help the student to think about how they want to sort of break the boundaries, you know?
Okay, okay. I'll go to another question.
Sure.
Yeah. So with your experience and what you're seeing in the industry, is it that the classic cocktails, are they still in, are they in as in, or is it the new things that are taking over now?
So let me put it this ways. So anything that is new, so if you go to a concept bar, right? I'm just going to use a cocktail bar as an example. You go to a cocktail bar, let's say the cocktail bar. So there's a bar called Jigger and Pony in Singapore, right? And this bar has been consistent over the last 5 years between number 1 to number 5 on Asia's 50 best and between number 1 to number 10 on the world's 50 best. So this bar does great things with different consistency of drinks, right? And actually, one of my presentation, one of the slides has a photograph of their drink as well. Great bar. But it's also seen that when people go and try their cocktails, after the first or the second, they will go to a Negroni or they'll go to a Manhattan. And that's got nothing to do whether the drinks are good or not good, right? It's more about comfort. More than ever, people go back to the classics for their third or fourth drink just because it's comfort. People go back to a margarita as their third or fourth drink because it's comfort. And that's what it is. So it's not about it being in fashion or not. I have a feeling that the classics will never go out of fashion.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Sushant. Yeah.
Sushant, there's so much learning there in your session. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, absolutely.
Yeah, and suddenly it's opened our eyes to, there's so many things that are happening around the world that we know nothing about.
Right,
And it's great that we get to hear things like this.
right.
What's the latest from you? Thank you.
My pleasure. Like I said, ma'am, I think there is great potential of guest speakers within India. Very
Right.
young budding talent from some really good bars who are making, great success on the international platform, but still working out of India. And I think that's the opportunity to have people like them speak or just sort of come out with their inspiration for students.
Right. Right. And I was thinking that, I mean,
Ma'am, sorry,
So-
can you unmute yourself again, ma'am?
Yeah. So I was just thinking, is it okay if we put this recorded session somewhere for all our students to see anytime that they want to?
Absolutely, ma'am. I've already shared my presentation as well. You'll have access to
Yeah.
it. The only thing
Yeah.
with my presentation is a lot of it is just bullet points, because a lot of this is something I didn't want to read out of, and it's just something that I know of. But happy to sort of send any kind of questions that anyone has. Happy to answer them even virtually after the session in writing. No problem at all. But
I
yeah, you
think
have access to my presentation.
we've recorded your lecture.
Okay,
So
right,
we
right,
would
right.
have that as well, I think.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure, sure.
Any more questions? Sundar, you can.
Yes, if participants have questions, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask. You could also raise your hands so that we can reach out to you.
Hello. I have one question. Am I audible?
Sure, yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, like there we have a lot of trains now these days in bar, and these trains are also changing faster, right? So, what is like our hospitality student? They have to prepare or start preparing themselves to adapt to all these trains, changing situations in bar.
I think the easiest way for a student to obviously be up to par with what's happening out in the industry is, I mean, okay, obviously not each one of your student is interested in becoming or joining the beverage industry, right? So, but those who are keen in which they think they would help them to progress a career within the beverage or bar industry, it's important for them to either is in today's world everything is available virtually. Right from 90% of my presentation is information from the internet. Meaning when I put this presentation together, I had to obviously do my own research, right? And what I'm trying to say is the 50 best bars, the list of the 50 best bars is available on the internet. These kind of things didn't exist when I was still a student, or maybe it existed by 10%, right? Now in today's world, I can go search for the 50 best bars of the world. I can go onto their website, I can download their menu, and I can dissect their menu. And that would tell me realistically what a general trend is, because one of the top bars of the world are doing it, right? So it is the power of the internet, but it's also curiosity. And it's very, very important to stay curious if you want to develop yourself. Because if you don't, you're going to be left far behind.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Sanjana, you had raised your hand earlier. If you have a question, ma'am, please ask.
Yes, I do have a small question.
Sure.
As Mrs. Sushant has a wide experience and wide exposure throughout the world serving with Marriott's, maybe
Right.
he would be able to answer my question correctly.
Sure.
So my small question is, as many students are opting for bar as a good career option, in
Right.
the future, they are very clear right from the first year. Many are very, very clear that they would like to join bars only, not in F&B as well.
Right.
They're
Right.
very much focused. So lots of girl students are also, sir, very much inclined in making their careers in bars today. So
Right.
how do you look at it? So practically, how is this as a career option for them in the future?
To be very, very honest with you, I think there is no problem in that at all. There is globally, I mean, even in India, I think India is catching up really, really fast. But I think globally, there is no difference in the two, whether you're male or female, is exactly the same. And why I say that is the opportunities are looked at based on your talent. Now, the only thing that I would advise is one, you need to be open to working late, because if you were going to be working in a successful bar, prominently it's night operations, right? So you need to be open to working late, and that's more to do with family restrictions or personal restrictions. Which once you're okay to do that, then sky's the limit. And the other thing is it's very easy to get into to start off with the bar and obviously diversify out to anything, and what that means is you can start off as a bartender, and from there you can either continue to work either in a hotel bar and grow up the line. You can work in a standalone bar, become a bar manager, and then grow up the line from there. You can even eventually, after working as starting off as a bartender and growing up, you can even become a brand ambassador for a beverage company. A lot of people are doing that. Or you can get into a beverage company to start doing beverage sales, like a wine company or a spirit company. So the opportunities are endless if that's what your passion is.
Right, sir. Right. Thank you so much, sir, for your answer. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
So I have a question.
Sure.
With regards to your presentation, you had spoken about the zero ABV beverages. I just
Right.
wanted to understand that in Singapore,
Yeah.
what is the acceptability quotient for such kinds of cocktails? Are there any takers for it, or is it selling or outselling, or do you need to upsell it?
No. So I want to say up to 30 to 33% of our sales of mixed drinks. I'm also going to use the word mixed drinks because that would quantify as a mix between alcoholic and non-alcoholic. Up to 30 to 33% of our mixed drinks are the non-alcoholic options, but it has to be experiential, which means that it's just not a mix of juices. So everything that we do in our cocktail bar, which is the non-alcoholic or zero proof cocktails, have a service ritual to them, and they look exactly like a cocktail. They would taste like a cocktail because we use the non-alcoholic spirit in them. It's just doesn't have any alcohol content. That's all.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Anybody has any further questions? Right, Tanushree ma'am, or
Yes, sir.
sorry, yeah, please take over.
All right. Thank you, sir. So I would like to take this opportunity to thank you for that excellent presentation that you had put together. It was so well researched, and all the plot points were covered so well. Thank you so much for that. And it was truly enriching. It was vibrant. It was dynamic because I think you covered so many points with regards to the upcoming trends in the bar. And if I may say that when you mentioned that India is not so far behind, in a way it is so true because there are so many bars in Pune who are online, who are keeping up with the trend.
Yeah.
There's a bar in Pune called Cobbler and Cruise. They are collaborating with bartenders from Delhi, from Bangalore. They have these pop-up
Mumbai.
events in their bars and also with chefs to come up with their bar bite menus, and they
Yeah.
promote it so that they get a steady mix of and new customers basically. And it's also about innovation. Food and beverage service will always be on innovation and how much you can attract customers. And thank you so much for that lovely session. Thank you for starting with the bar design concepts. And Cora wine is definitely something new that I have learned personally.
Right.
And I will take that back with me. And also the concept of sparkling teas.
Yeah.
Because non-alcoholic beverage is still a very small part of our syllabus, but in industry, it is so much more. And in fact, today itself, there is a coffee festival that is happening in Pune,
Right.
where people will come across and display their products and the kind of coffee training institutes that they have come up with. So
Right.
thank you so much for this insightful session, and we've had a new perspective on the craft, the culture, and the compliance that is there in the beverage world. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for your
Thank you.
time.
Appreciate it.
So I request all participants to please switch on your cameras. We can have a quick photograph. Rather screenshot I would be taking up. But I also add to something, Sushant, that
Sure.
Pune has seen a huge growth even in craft, the beers,
Yes.
and everyone is having their own micro brewery, and
Correct.
there is a huge variety that is being offered to the customers today. I don't know when you would be trying to come down sometime to Pune, but you would surely find a huge change that has happened in the Pune market now. It
Correct.
is not what at the time that you were here and what
Correct.
it is now. It's huge now, huge. So
Correct.
do make it a point if you're sometime coming down. And of course, you can come down to our institute. Lots of changes. Ma'am has planned so many different things in a one of its kind lab that we have.
Right.
You spoke about the bar lab that you spoke about, the back office, the very same laboratory that is planned in our organization.
Right.
So please do come down whenever you are here
Absolutely.
in Pune.
Sure.
So everybody just hold on. I'm quickly taking some screenshots. All right. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, sir, for this lovely session. Thank you so much once again.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
sir.
Thank you, Sushant. And stay
Always a pleasure.
connected.
Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me today.
So participants, we still have some time for our next session to start. So like the earlier session, there's a quick, it's maybe a 12-13 minute break. Quickly, you can have a cup of chai, coffee, and return back. You can leave the screens blank as it is, or you want to relog in, it's upon you. But we'll have a 10-12 minute break, and we'll be back with our next session. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.